Hey folks, welcome to Moonshift Audio. Jungle was one of my first loves when it came to electronic music, and it's one of the first styles that I ever worked in when I started producing, so it'll always have a special place in my heart. Jungle also has a surprisingly big influence on some of the more modern styles of music like hyperpop, and I've even heard the odd amen break chop making it into some quite mainstream pop releases. I'd say pretty much 90% of all Jungle is made from people recycling and chopping up just two drum loops, the amen break and the think break. There's a ton of stuff out there on YouTube if you want to learn more about those drum loops, but for this week's video I want to show you how you can make your own DIY jungle break completely from scratch. Here's an example of what we'll be making. Before we get stuck in, I just want to introduce myself quickly. My name's Jack, I'm a UK-based producer and mix engineer. If you're interested in working with me, or if you'd like a bit of support with one of your tracks, you can get in touch with me at moonshiftaudio.com. But for now, let's make some jungle breaks. Okay, so here we are in Cubase, and the first thing I've done is I've loaded up an instance of Kontakt, and the reason I'm using Kontakt is because I've got this really nice kind of funk or soul drum kit from Make Pop Music. It's called the Anderson Pack. It's in the style of the recent Anderson Paak and Silk Sonic album, and you can hear if I just play some of those drums. And it's got some kind of pre-made rolls and stuff. And you've got a fair bit of control over this in the mixer window, but I'm literally leaving this exactly how it comes. And if I open the key editor, you can see I've just programmed here a pretty straightforward funk beat. Lots of ghost notes on the snare, a few little hi-hat skitters. And I'm running this session at 123 beats a minute. So quite sort of speedy funk. And it sounds like this. So I wanted to kind of make this even more rough around the edges. So the first thing I did was load up a Valhalla Room. Very low mix, you can see here, 6.4%. Just adding a really subtle bit of room kind of energy to particularly the kicks. The snare's already got its own reverb on, built in from that Kontakt instrument. And this will become a lot more obvious once I put the next bit of processing on, which is a iHeart NY from Baby Audio. So this is completely dry at the moment. I'm just going to feed in some of the parallel signal, the compressed signal. If you want to hear that on its own, yeah, it's really smashing it. But if we unsolo it, and that's where that little bit of extra reverb is getting brought out. I think if I wasn't running this whole thing into a compressor, I'd probably have the mix a bit higher on that reverb. But when we're slamming it like this, get those lovely bits of reverb. On the kick is where I really like hearing it. And that reverb is going to sound awesome when we pitch this up in a minute. Last thing I did, just to rough it up even more, is run this through a radiator. Yeah, so that's really nice and gritty now. I'm not going to get into the programming of the actual beat in this video, but if anyone's interested, let me know in the comments and I can put together another video on how you might actually program a beat like this. So we're pretty much there now with this basic funk loop, and what I'm going to do is export this and open a new project. So we've got our new project here, and I'm just going to load in that jungle break now. I've set the tempo of this project to 160 BPM, which is a great tempo for kind of classic jungle. And there's our loop. And what we need to do is to time stretch this. But we're going to make sure that we use the tape algorithm, not the time algorithm. And what that means is that when we time stretch this, it's actually going to pitch it up. It's not going to try and pitch correct. A lot of the time when you're doing a bit of time stretching, you kind of want the pitch to remain intact because you get things going out of key and kind of landing between keys. So anything musical, it's usually good to have that corrected. But because we're kind of going for an old school kind of sped up tape or vinyl effect, we're going to choose this tape algorithm. If you're using Ableton, there is an option in the automatic time stretch in that to turn off the pitch correction there. And what we're going to do is we're going to put in the original BPM, which is 123, and the current BPM, which is 160. And that should now be done. Let's see what we got. Nice. Super snappy. I've actually put a little bit of EQ on this. I can turn that off if you want to hear how that came out. Just kind of like bringing out a little bit of the mid-range, pulling out a little bit of mud there and taking off some of the highs. So that reverb in particular is really nice. Like the sound of an actual pitched up reverb can be great. So now we've got our sound, all we need to do is chop it up. So I'm going to snap that into 16ths and let's have a look. Here's one that I made earlier. So this is a little loop that I made from chopping up this same break. Nice. I really like the little chopped out reverb tails that you get sneaking in partway through there. Just to demonstrate another way that this can work, I'm going to pull up, this is a drum beat from a breakbeat style track that I made a year or so ago. You can hear this has got some much bigger kick drums going on. That one I just made from samples that I threw into a battery. So if I export that as a loop, we can load that into the same project. And we'll need to time stretch this one as well. That was at 128 BPM, which it's detected actually. Okay, let's try that. Put an EQ on there as well. But that's got a huge kick drum. That pitched up 808, really slamming. So if we come over here, here's one I made earlier moment. We can use these two breaks, the original sort of snappy one from the Anderson pack, and then a chopped up version of the breakbeat that I'd made for that breakbeat track. And I've chucked in a synth loop and a bass line down here, and we should have a bit of jungle. Maybe a bit more bass than we need going on with that enormous kick, as well as the jungle bass I've got there. There you go. 2 do-it-yourself jungle breaks. That's it for this week. Please do like and subscribe for more tips, tricks, resources and downloads from me at Moonshift Audio. Till next time.